about how I got started with the Akashic Records and my journey thus far with them. So a couple of years ago, about 4 now, I had a friend that said, do you know what the Akashic Records are? And I said, no. But when she asked me that word had a resonance within me, a remembrance. I wasn't sure exactly what it was yet. And she sent me a podcast by an Akashic Record reader. Her name is Ashley Wood. She has thus changed it because she's gotten married. But if you type in Ashley Wood Akashic Records, she will come up. I listened to the podcast and started doing some research. I can't remember if it was Ashley that I heard this from or if I Googled it. But I learned about the book, How to Read the Akashic Records by Linda Howe. It's an orange cover, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But I got the book, read it, started listening to more of Ashley's transmissions. And then my friend asked me if I wanted to take a course with her on the Akashic Records, and I said yes. And so we took that in unison. What that course was ultimately doing was teaching how to reach deeper levels of meditation within self and perceive things a little bit more clearly in the etheric realms. It also connected us with spirit animals, and that's a really great way to start etheric work because animals have a tangibility to them. Oftentimes people are really nervous about getting into the astral fields because it's like, oh no, what the heck is going to come through? But animals, are a safer option because you can see them with your 3D eyes, whether it's on this in this environment that you're in, or if you see them on television or, in storybooks and things of that nature. So animals are a great way to kickstart yourself in astral work. So took the course. I started diving very deep in research, getting my hands on as much as I possibly could. When you are learning about the records, it can be a little bit difficult to bring tangibility to that until you actually experience it yourself. And so I booked an Akashic record reading for myself with this woman, and it really helped unlock a new level within me. One, while we were doing that session, I had the realization, oh, I could do this too. I didn't exactly know how I was going to do it because she was utilizing a lot of psychic energy and tapping into my field and telling me information that she wouldn't have known otherwise. But again, there was something there that said, I'll be able to do this. So I kept on researching and listening to all these people on YouTube talking about them and reading books and things of that nature. And there was, a time where I said, this is really what I want to do. Like, I'm going to make this my goal because it was so enticing. It was like, oh, we have information to everything throughout the universe. I love knowledge and wisdom and continuing to learn and grow and evolve. And you're telling me I have access to all of that for myself and for other people. I also love goals that have a lot of moving parts to them, and I knew that this was going to be a lifelong commitment for myself in developing myself as a reader. At first it was a little intimidating because I wasn't as deep into my psychic abilities yet, and I was very nervous about giving sessions to other people because I was worried if I was going to have enough information coming through, if it was going to be accurate. Now, outside of researching about the Akashic Records, I was learning about everything that I teach in this course. Subconscious mindset reprogramming, central nervous system, processing your emotions, inner child wounds. All of that was a great way to give myself more solidity in working with other people. Even if I wasn't as developed in my psychic abilities, I was really able to help people with their human stuff that they had going on in their present day experience. The work that I do now is a lot more esoteric and multidimensional. In the beginning, it was helping people through their anxiety and their depression, understanding what it means to be an empath, how to heal trauma wounds, real physical things. It was less about spiritual gifts and different incarnations. That all came way later down the line. after lots and lots and lots of sessions with other people and with myself. So people are often concerned about, well, this is such a big deal reading somebody's records. And yeah, it is. I mean, it is sacred, honored work. The people who are meant to be in your field with the skills and abilities that you have is exactly how it's supposed to work. If I were to go back and speak to people on the level where I was at in life, where they were at in life, we were a mirror for one another, and I was talking about all the multidimensional stuff, they weren't in that place in their life to receive that information. They wouldn't have understood it because they're not on that level of consciousness yet. I wasn't on that level of consciousness yet, so how am I going to speak on something that I don't know about yet? So I want to say this in what skills and abilities do we have now that we can filter through the lenses of the Akashic Records. It doesn't always have to be wild multidimensional work. There's so many things that humans need support with on a more 3D level, and that's totally okay to start there and then sprinkle in your psychic magic. And as you get deeper into it, it will become even more psychic, and you pulling things from their field that you wouldn't otherwise have clarity or information on. It came from their higher self or inner children or their different incarnations. It's also okay to start where you're at with the tools and resources that you have gleaned in your lifetime and share those with people. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. One day I said, I'm only going to progress so far with this with myself. And I really want to get to a reality where I unplug from the 3D matrix and I'm able to be an energy healer full-time, a spiritual coach full-time. The only way that I'm going to get there is giving sessions to people. So the same friend who told me about the records, she introduced me to a woman named Jessa Reed. Not physically, but she told me about her. And she has a podcast, and it was called Soberish. And now she has one called AOD and the Projector and the Flail. She had a Facebook group for her podcast where there was a lot of spiritual people in there that are a little deeper into their journeys. I participated in there. Participate is not the right word. I was communing with people in there. And I said, you know what? I think this would be a really safe space for me to offer to do sessions for others in order to get practice hours. And so I gave about 60 sessions over a 3-month period for free because I was very concerned about what I was able to offer back to others. Now, I'm not saying that you need to give 60 sessions over 3 months because honestly, that was not healthy. The way that I did it, I'm the type of person that likes to just go full force into something, but there are some downsides to doing it at that intensity level as well, because one, I was going through my own shadow work healing journey, and then being in so many people's fields that were healing through really intensive things. It was helping me heal, but at the same time, it was like, I'm trying to heal and I'm taking on your stuff over here and transmuting and alchemizing and constantly having these shadow aspects brought up in my field. And so again, take your time with it. It doesn't have to be that intense. But after I held the 60 sessions, I said, okay, I feel confident in starting to charge people for my services. And in that group is where I was advertising before I even started making any content on social media. As there was only so many people in this group, I think at that time, there's maybe 1,000 people in there, which that's a lot of people, but not everybody is wanting sessions all the time from a small pool like that. I started making content on social media. The first one I started on was TikTok. I was making videos where I wasn't even in the screen. It was me doing oracle cards and doing voiceovers. So there was a natural progression to me advertising the energy healing services that I offer, but that's a completely different video that we get to. So I started giving more sessions to people outside of that group and building my confidence with my skills and my abilities. Eventually started doing more multi-dimensional psychic work with people, and now where I'm at is helping people with a variety of things, spiritual gifts, helping them activate their soul mission, really learning to embody different archetypes that they've incarnated here with, being leaders of the collective consciousness shift, becoming very aware of self, teaching you how to step outside of yourself and be the observer so you can create a lot more forward movement in your life. A lot of what I teach is self-concept and empowerment, confidence, you believing in yourself, that you are the creator of your reality, explaining quantum physics and inner child healing. So we can see how that is a lot different from where I first started of here's tools and abilities for anxiety and depression and trauma. Still in the similar realms, there's like a Venn diagram there, but it's a lot deeper work. Now I'm sitting here teaching you how to access the Akashic Records. I have become not only a practitioner, but also a teacher and a mentor and a guide on accessing them. So it is my pleasure and my honor to be that person on your journey, or one of those persons on your journey. Hopefully I can offer you some different perspectives and understandings that aren't always commonly talked about when the records are brought up. Things that I have learned through working myself or working with clients. I'm super excited to get deeper into this with you. Final thing that I'll say before we get into our next section here is when I got that calling for the Akashic Records, it wasn't so much me learning how to access them, it was me remembering. I have been a reader for not just this incarnation, but multitudes of them. That is why I am able to get to the depth levels that I am in this lifetime. However, I also spend an immense amount of time practicing on myself, practicing on others. It is me learning how to work with the human psyche on a 3D tangible level, and then also doing astral and etheric work, multidimensional work. So I have my hands in a lot of different things, and I tend to kind of rotate in life, like, oh, I'm going to focus on inner child healing now, or quantum physics, or working on the chakra system, and kind of working this wheel. What I do is listen for the intuitive pings that my higher self and my spirit team give me of, hey, this is going to bring us a lot of joy to focus on and study right now, and when it stops feeling that way, then we need to switch to a different area. And because I have surrendered to that process, it has helped make me or cultivate me into a very well-rounded healer that can talk on a multitude of levels to someone, human or their higher awarenesses or their different incarnations, inner children, because I study so many different things. That's why the QEA in and of itself delves into so many topics of interest, because if you have knowledge in all of those different areas, it is going to make you a very well-rounded healer for other people, but also for yourself. When I heard about the Akashic Records, I had no idea where it was going to end up taking me. I just felt this deep resonance and said, this is for me. And instead of getting caught up in the hows and the whys and the whens, I said, this feeling is enough. I am going to follow it and see where it takes me, instead of getting up in my head and talking myself out of it. And now we are here. So maybe it's not the Akashic Records for you that has done that. It can be Reiki, light language, subconscious mindset reprogramming, inner child healing, dragon healing. It can literally be anything, okay? Akashic Records might be part of that. When you get the call, we need to follow it. It doesn't mean that you're always going to bring that thing to full totality, fruition. Maybe not. I think I've told this story before. When I first started learning about Reiki, I didn't understand it. It wasn't computing. And I studied it until it wasn't making sense anymore. So I'm going to put that down. And if it's meant to come back around, it will. And then a year later, it did. And I said, oh, now I get it. and I ended up becoming a Reiki master in Kundalini Reiki. But I followed the nudges because it was going to help me later on in the things that I needed to be doing. But you have to be okay with surrendering to the flow of self, not just the universe. Okay, we love that. There's also these cycles within you, and listening to your emotional responses to things is the way that your intuition is breadcrumbing you to where you need to go. That's why it's really important to learn emotional processing, because that's how the universe and your higher self and your guides and your inner children and your different incarnations, they speak to you through your emotional states of being. I had a client session the other day. She was having a difficult time discerning her discernment. And when her intuition was trying to speak to her, I said, a great way to make it very simple is, does this make me feel good or does this make me feel bad? Does this make me feel expansive? Does this make me feel constrictive? Your team around you are going to lead you in the direction of things that feel good. Now, in saying that, sometimes behavioral patterns that are not good for us are maladaptive. We tell ourselves a story that they feel good. When in all totality, our conscious mind is like, no. Okay, we're telling ourselves a story. Okay, and sometimes when we feel bad in our body, it's actually our intuition trying to tell us that something is dangerous and we need to stay away from it, right? Like, oh, there's a snake around the corner, right? Not that snakes are evil or anything, but just so you don't get bit. So that is you needing to sit with things when they don't feel good in your body and say, does this not feel good because of fear of trauma projections, or because I'm anxious, or is it something that is legitimately something that I should stay away from? So that takes a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection. But I think we all know what I'm talking about when something feels really good in our body and we get that tug of like, oh, I need to go do this. But then your rationality comes in and says, this is why you couldn't do this, or why you shouldn't do this, and all these things. Your soul is saying, hey, this is something that's going to be really good for us. Please go do this. Don't let your mind be at the wheel of consciousness. Let your soul do that. Get out from up here and be in here. Because there's a million reasons why I could have said, oh, I whatever with the records or light language or Reiki and all these things, and I wouldn't be where I am today. Instead, I said, this feels good right now, and I'm going to follow it until it doesn't. Just like when I went to go get my psychology background, it was great until it wasn't, and then I let it go. But I needed that in order to do the things that I do now. And so we've got to trust ourselves that we are going down the path that is meant for us if we are following those intuitive pinks. Do you need special abilities in order to read your Akashic Records or other people's? Yes and no. Again, how I've said before, anybody is capable of reading them. The depth level of what you are able to access is dependent upon how much trauma that you have cleared out from your body, because it's very heavy and dense, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to perceive information within self, especially multidimensional facets, because there's a lot of filter lenses and distortions. It's how much love are we showing self, because that raises your vibration and frequency and what you're able to access. Are we able to step outside of ourselves and see ourselves from a higher self lens, so you are not so emotionally attached to what is going on in your 3D life? And how much time are we pouring into self with affirmations or things that you enjoy in life, fun activities? How much magic are we imbuing into our field? Are we spending time in our imagination? Do we know what our clair abilities are? Now, I know that we have spent some time in the course talking about the 8 main clairs, and there's more than that, but to start of your clairs, figuring out which ones you're most prominent in is going to help you better perceive information, because the better you understand yourself, the better you can see. Because if you know how you input information, how you output it, it's going to benefit you. Are we spending time developing our clear abilities? Because it's one thing to know, and it's another thing to actually put that into practice. Are we connecting with other people in regards to the Akashic Records? Even talking to people about it can be very activating, even if you're not giving full out sessions. Are we listening to other healers and practitioners talk about them so we can receive more guidance and downloads and insight? Are you giving sessions to other people? Because I'll be real honest with you, there is only so much your Akasha field can expand if you're not in other people's energy fields and their records. Because everybody has such unique experiences and perspectives, not only on this 3D human plane, but their travels throughout the cosmos. When I am giving sessions to people, there are things that I had no idea existed. Whether that is plants, creatures, crystals, all these different types of community hubs, refugee hubs, different types of technology, planets that nobody even knows about. There's so much that we have access to through networking and through community. Does this always have to be paid sessions? No. Some people like doing energy exchanges, and that's great. And do you have to work with other people or connect with other people to read the Akashic Records? No, that is not what I'm saying at all. There is a time where I was only reading my own before I started practicing with other people. I am saying that a way that you can expand yourself and your tools and your abilities is through working with other people. If you are wanting to heal something within yourself or activate, upgrade for self or for others, what are the results that you're looking to achieve? Once we get clear on the results, what is the process of getting us there? So let's say that you want to start a spiritual business. We have a lot of people-pleasing, masking, imposter syndrome, talking down to ourselves. All of those things are going to be needed to looked at in order to feel confident in creating said business or growing said business. Do you have fears of success or fears of failure? Do you have fears of expressing yourself authentically or communicating or voicing your opinions and your beliefs? Fears of being on social media, fears of persecution, fears of witch wounds. The goal over here, start a business, that's great. What do we need to look at behind that? So when I say what special abilities do we need in order to read the Akashic Records, it's kind of figuring out what is creating I don't like to call them challenges or blockages because that reiterates that in your paradigm. What is creating growth moments that we need to experience in order to have said goal over here? So that takes self-awareness and deep diving within yourself for your own life, or if you do want to help other people through sessions, learning the tools to help people navigate through those things. How are you going to help them through people pleasing or imposter syndrome or fear of success or fear of failure? Okay? Or help them with their inner child trauma, help them with their confidence or their self-empowerment or their self-concept. How are you doing that? There are billions of different ways. Subconscious mindset reprogramming, working with their central nervous system, helping them learn how to process their emotions, working with their chakras. It's what calls out to you that makes you joyful and makes you happy, the process. Okay, it's not one specific linear way to do it, but we do need to figure out how am I going to get person from here to over here. Those are the special abilities that we need to have. Now, with the more psychic and multidimensional work, I will say it over and over and over again. We need to learn how to get in theta brainwave states. That is the level of meditation that we need to be able to get to in order to go really far out in somebody's Akashic Records and retrieve information. Because you are having to go, excuse me, through so many layers of reality. You have to be very clear-minded, almost like an empty vessel, in order to receive this information, because there's a lot that we are having to sift through, multitudes of lifetimes, multitudes of perspectives and experiences. And if your own biases or stress, anxiety, and fear is muddling up your mind and taking up a lot of your brain space, it's going to be a lot harder for you to perceive things. I have to get to a point now where I'm literally sitting in the quiet and everything is coming to me instead of me going to it. It's become a lot easier of a process, but I have had to work on myself and the things that are going on in my life and getting myself to a higher reality, so this cloudiness isn't up here, in order for me to sit in the stillness and be an open receiver. That looks like us facing our shadow aspects and our thoughts that are non-preferable and the emotions that are triggering us. That means actively working through those things in our projections, in our traumas, and our biases. And I don't mean us hyper focusing on that and saying, well, I can't be a reader and a healer because I still got stuff. Everybody still got stuff. I got stuff. I constantly work on things, but I've cleared out enough of it so that it's easier for me to connect on those very deep levels. So there is kind of this precipice that you hit where you're like, okay, I feel so much lighter as a being. Now we're kind of just taking triggers and behavioral patterns and traumas and things day by day and utilizing our tools and resources that we have to heal through those things. It's not such a big undertaking, but we need to continue to focus on, if I want to help people with specific things, I need to do continuing education on myself and for others. And one of the ways that you do that is learning how to drop down into theta brainwave states, so you can be in that point of nothingness. That's really what it is. It's complete nothingness. And I'm not saying that I don't have thoughts about things coming up when I'm in somebody's records, like deep in there. I'll be like, oh, I need to go to the grocery store later. But it's more about, hey, I'm not in that space right now. I'm in channeling mode. Hey, I've allotted this time for this person. I don't need to think about that right now. So it's more about learning how to move things out of your peripheral in your brain so that you can be very present-minded with the other person or with yourself if you're giving yourself a reading.